Greetings, programs. This is Let's Code a Full 90, where we'll take the next hour and a half, dig into some source code, and try to make our part of the world a little bit of a better place. I am your host, Rob Benching, and today we're going to continue our forays into the Wix toolset. Actually, we're going to pick up where we've left off, which essentially is our gigantic, huge to-do list, and we're going to clean it up. That's kind of what I want to do. I want to go back and make sure that we haven't missed anything in all the work we've been doing, especially these two issues that I know were the last things that we had going on from episode 28 that kept kind of get pushed on and pushed on and pushed on, but then go back and kind of review and see if there are any other little bits and pieces to clean up and fix up in here. So I had a build running just before all this. Hopefully it's finished up. Not quite done. We're going to let that run. All right, quick reminder. What was this NetFX build thing? And I was trying to remind myself. So we had some issues where when we were building the NetFX package, we were updating the hash and certificate thumbprint changes for all the remote payload work we did. And as I was editing some of the WXS files and then building, it would the NetFX build would only build one architecture at a time and then fail. It wouldn't print out the errors from all the builds at one time. I want to kind of dig into that and understand that. I think that was the issue. And then also the error message when the exe package payload, what was it? That had a description when the hash was missing and source file was not present. So I'm going to try to mess around with those a little bit. We're just going to play around with them by hand, see if we can capture the issues that are going on, and then go in and make sure that the experience inside the Wix toolset is good. Essentially, we're going to be users of Wix 4 for a little bit and see if we can make that experience of actually just using the Wix toolset better than what it felt like when I was doing this work. It felt bumpy, jagged edges, things like that I didn't like as much. So I'm going to go jump over there and do those things. So hopefully my build is done. Not quite done. Do I really care? This is the test, so it's at the very, very end of the Wix end-to-end. So this is the end of the build, which, as we'll see, takes about 14 minutes. I kicked it off probably about 13 minutes ago. Less than that, or more than that, but just barely. All right, there we go. Finish up. And there we are, zipping up the PDBs. This is what we call finalizing the build, where it packs everything up and sets the last few pieces into the artifacts folder that then on a official build would get zipped up and put up to be accessible off of the build machine. And we run this on the dev boxes just to make sure that it always works correctly, so that if we goof this up, that we don't have issues. Took 17 minutes this time. All right. What's next? Where are we going? We're going to NetFX. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to introduce some problems and then experiment with them. All right, so let's go do that. So source extensions, NetFX extension. So we built successfully once, which means I can now operate within this little space here, knowing that all the other layers around me are cleanly built. And since we built everything, I don't have to worry about before or after. I know that I can operate with inside NetFX without issue. So let's go ahead and, you know what? Everything we're going to do is here, I think. I don't know. Maybe that's not true. So I'm going to do this real quick. I'm going to open up another Visual Studio Code inside this folder alone. Hopefully it's nice and big. It is. All right, cool. So now I have two Visual Studio Codes. One is open in the root of all of the Wix code, and then this one is just inside this directory. So it can help scope how many files you're dealing with when you just kind of want to poke around and look at things within a small space. I do this all the time with Visual Studio Code, and I really like that it has this ability. All right, now the one thing I have to remember is switching to the correct, the other code that's here. So I want to look at the exe package payload. Complaint about descriptions cannot be set when hash was missing and source file is not present. All right, so if we remove the hash from an exe package payload and we do not have a source file, which I think none of them do, because all these are remote payloads, because we're not actually containing the .NET Framework binaries here. We just get their hashes and check that code in the Wix toolset. I think if we make these changes, then we can introduce a failure, which will then also allow us to hit this thing. So let's go and try to do that. First things first, let's find something that has a hash or a certificate thumbprint. All right, and the description. Okay, certificate public key, certificate thumbprint. All right, we know this builds right now, and let's take a quick look at the netfx command. So the netfx command does a build and then a test and then a pack, and this build is going to build our solution, so it'll build everything. Let's go ahead and I think we'll just run that and see how long it takes to run, and we'll see how fast our dev loop is or is not right now. Okay, so certificate public key. So the hash or the certificate public key is allowed, if you remember from all our remote payload work. So I'm just going to take out the certificate public key on this one, and this is the ASP.NET Core Redist ID. And then come back over here, and we're just going to run the netfx command to build, and let's see how it goes. I'll do clear screen to build, get a nice clean go away here. All right, so it's going to build netfx x64 x86, and here we are now building the wixlib, which includes this code, and it says what it should say: the description attribute cannot be specified when attribute source file is present. Yes, this is kind of what I remember it being odd. All right, and it's printed 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's look at this. Control G, 2, 4. Line 24. Okay, well, at least we got the line number right. And it's saying that this description cannot be present. This description here behind us cannot be specified when the attribute source file is present. Yeah, this is not a great error message because of course we don't have a source file attribute. And I think the real thing that it's complaining about here is the fact that it does not have a source file, so it's going down one path in our errors, and the errors aren't making a lot of sense. Okay, so now that we've kind of made that make sense, I'm thinking that maybe we'll go and create our unit test real quick and see if we can get a unit test to reproduce this. I think that's what I want to do first. So let's jump over there just real quick, and we'll dig in on this. All right, let's go do that. So I'm gonna bring up Visual Studio and open our solution for the Wix, the core Wix toolset, which is the compiler and all the tool in there. Really? Don't care. Close all these tabs. All right. Close this up, and we are gonna go want to look at our test. Now this is about the remote payloads in our testing the core. No, I want the integration probably. And we're testing the remote payloads, not the subcommand, the remote payloads. Or we could look at the exe package fixture. I think it's any of the packages, but the exe package fixture. Let's see. This one is also bigger, but it represents the one we want. Let's see. Is there any other bundle package fixture? What's in that one too? This has bundle, can build bundle with package, can build bundle with remote bundle package. Okay. Can build bundle with v3. All right. v3 bundle package. I see. Can build bundle with remote bundle package. Okay. So this is checking out different kinds of package types, which is fine. Totally reasonable. Let's see. We have so many different bundle ones to choose from. Maybe I'll stick to the exe package because I do have some error type things. Cannot build with only detect condition. Uninstall arguments. Yeah. All right. So let's see. Where is the one certificate? Certificate. Yeah, there we go. Cannot build bundle exe package using certificate verification without cache ID. All right. I think this is the sort of thing that I want to verify. And I'm going to want to verify the error messages. So the primary thing that we're going to be doing here is adding checks for these error messages. All right. Cannot build bundle with exe package. What am I saying? Without source or hash or certificate. Okay, cool. Now let's go find this file here and let's see what we have in the folder. Good. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of different cases in here, and this is pretty close to what I want. Cool. We'll start this. And this is what is this? This is exe package without source, hash, or certificate. Yeah, I think I'll say it that way. Cool. Go back to our exe package and let's use our new file for our test. And this will start failing. Oh, let me bring in, apply my Windows layout for my streaming to bring in crunch here. And of course, this is passing. Let's clear my previous tests and let's pin this one here. Pin. All right. So this is passing because I haven't changed the source at all yet. And what do I want? I want no certificate, but I want a no certificate, no source, and no hash, but I want a description. Description equals some description. Doesn't matter. And I also want to go back to our example here and say size, and let's give it a version as well. Just so we can get all the error messages here. Version. And I'm just going to do 1.2. That's fine. All right, so there we have our little fake enough to fake it. Let's go over and look at the exe package fixture, and it's complaining that I have the wrong error message. And now I have the real error message. That is this thing. I bring this over and look at it. It says the exe package attribute cannot be specified when attribute source file is present. And then we're going to get another one. I'm just going to drop all these in. This is going to say version. Does it also talk about size? Oh, yes. And size. It's both there. I can see it in the message there. Size. All right, if this passes, we now know that we're reproducing the error that we saw over netfx, and the actual exit code is 35. That's fine. Not too worried about the exit code, honestly. I'm really only interested in the error messages here. So what I want to do now, great. So now we've reproduced this and we have a test doing. So I want to come back. Don't care about this thing and we don't care about that file. So let's look at this. So what do we want to say? We want to say that you're missing a source, a certificate, and a hash. All three are missing. Yeah, that's the kicker. We want to say that all three are missing. Not talk about the description, size, or version, because those aren't the problem makers. Okay, so cannot be specified when attribute source file is present. Okay, we have to go find this. I'm gonna guess it's in that class that's used by the compiler that I never can remember its name when I want to, but I know that it's in the compiler core, and we're looking at the bundle compile. It's the payload. Do I see it here? The payload thing. Compiler bundle. Let's see. Payload. Oh, there. I'm also going to tell nCrunch only to show me the coverage for this test. That'll help narrow down the cases that I'm looking for. All right, let's see. Package payload. Exe package payload. That's the part that we want to go parse down into. Parse package payload element. Yep, you can see here we have the green. This is nCrunch behavior. I just love this because I'm just going to sing the praises of nCrunch. We have these green lines show me the coverage of the test that we have, and the white lines show me not. And because I've said only show me for this test, it's going to help me narrow down quickly down to the, I know that the messages will be within this green. And it's in this compiler payload, finish compiling package payload. I think this is where it's at. no, it's not in finish, but it's in this class. Yeah, I think these are all the error messages here. Calculate and verify fields. I'm pretty sure this is where we're back in here because this does all the heavy lifting for these things. So let's just go ahead and step through here. All right. So if the source file is empty, oh no, this is the payload. This is not, this is fake. We're looking for foo.exe was the one that we care about. Source files, or the one that has no source file. Yes. Where the name is foo.exe. Can you show me? Oh yeah, there you go. Name is foo.exe. Great. So, all right, is remote allowed is true, but we're not remote because we're missing a certificate public key, thumbprint, and a hash. So we're not remote. If the source file's name, yeah, yes, right. So it's gonna pull, the source file will get set to the name of the file. Yeah. And that makes our error message trickier to solve. So what's happening is that it's saying, hey, you used name instead of source file. So tell you what, because you have the name, we'll just assume that will be the name that we'll find it on disk. So you don't have to specify source file. And we default it. And that's, I mean, that's obviously what this is doing. It's not remote because it doesn't have certificate public key, thumbprint, or hash. So now you have a source file. So then the problem is we now have a source file and we're not remote. But remote would be allowed. Yeah. And it is local will be true once I step over that. Is local is true. We are not remote. And now we have the, if it's not empty, we have the description. And here we are with our illegal attribute with other attributes where it says source file. And the problem is it's not source file that's creating the problem. This is not a great error message. Tricky. Because the description, size, and version are only allowed if you don't have the actual physical file. Or, yeah, size has value and there's not a version. So there's no source file, but the error message is talking about source file. But we're not remote either. But when we find a description that hints that maybe we want to be remote, I wonder if we should turn this around and have a check. I guess that would be one way of doing this. So if the description is empty, and if we remembered that we defaulted source file. All right, I'm gonna stop debugging. I'm just gonna try to throw some things here. All right, so let's say defaulted source file equals false. So we did not default source file here, but then we did right here equals true. Or if source file ends with a directory separator char, right? So this is just pending. So if your source file ends with a backslash, essentially, then we will append the name onto it. And this is old Wix behavior, like Wix 1.0 behavior that just kind of keeps getting carried on and carried on. I don't even know how many people use it, because you could technically write this as source file equals, c:\foo \, and this would say, hey, here's my base folder, and put the name foo.exe in it. I don't know how many people do that. It might work really well with like bind paths and things like that, where you could have, except would we resolve? Anyway, yeah, we would. So you could have bind paths in here. Dot, and it would resolve the file name based off of this being a, foo folder, resolve it. All right, anyway, okay. So I don't want to remove that behavior right now. Not for this error message, at least. Maybe we shouldn't allow it. It's a little cryptic, and I don't know how many people use it. But anyway, that's the issue there. So if we defaulted the source file, would only be here, because here we're just, the source file attribute was present. We just added the name to it in this case. Okay. Guess that's the other thing is like, yeah, let's see. So if we defaulted the source file, then what we could do is have better messages here. So if defaulted source, defaulted source file, I don't know. Otherwise, we did not default the source file name. That means the source file name was specified. The source file was present. The attribute was present. If string is, yep, all right. So otherwise it was present, and then we get that. And you can see now my test is failing because we're now hitting this case, which is not giving us a good error message. All right, let's see how hard is it to come up with this message. So we know we don't want to say source file. We instead want to say description. This might get me where I want to go. I don't think this is what I want, but I think this has led me to a path that's interesting. All right, let's look at illegal attribute with other attribute. And right. So other attribute, and see, we have a lot of overloads with other attribute. Right. This attribute cannot be specified when attribute is present with a value. All right. And then we have another one. This attribute cannot be specified when attribute this or this is also present. Right. So you can have two attributes that are present, illegal attribute with this, or 3 or 4 or 5. Yeah. All right. So we could go up to 1, 2, 3, 4 extra attributes. Okay. So what I'm thinking is that this is one way to do it. We could say the description, where is it? The description is illegal if the source file name is there. But I'm wondering if we approach this differently, we can get rid of this whole defaulted source file thing and say instead, there's an expected attribute. Expected attributes with other attribute. There we go. Expected attribute without other attribute. Expected attribute with other attributes. I don't think this is going to quite say what we want either. This element's, yeah, attribute was not found. Yeah, see here we're saying that we want an attribute, but it wasn't present. This is so close. So what I want it to say, and maybe I just have to create another one. And again, all of these error messages are really old and they were written a long time ago. And as we've kind of refined them, we're like, yeah, there's probably slightly better ways of saying this holistically, but not late in v4. So I'm trying to instead say, all right, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say, what do I want to say? Description attribute is only allowed when the hash or certificate. There we go. Certificate, thumb, public key, whichever. Public key present. All right, so that's the one I'm looking for. The description attribute on this element is only allowed when the hash or certificate public key attribute is present, which might expected attribute. So here it's going to say source file is expected. The element, attribute was not found. One of these is required. All right, so that's expected attributes. Yeah. All right, so that's the or case, which is perfect for that. This is then more. Expected attributes is more. And then I want expected attribute with other attributes. So I'm back to that illegal attribute. Could have sworn it was in here. Too many of these now to keep track of them without other attribute. All right. Was not found. It is required without that attribute. No. Is required without attributes. Yeah, see, I don't want that either. Okay, let's see. Let's try what we can find in here for allowed. Where's the word allowed? That's sequences. Name too long. Illegal. Stream name too long. All right, so allowed. Didn't get me what I wanted. Let's try present. Expected attribute with other attribute. Yeah, I'm back to expected attributes. This was element must have a value for exactly one. Yeah. The element must have a value for it. No, that's not it. Attribute was not found. Was not found. Was not found. Was not found. Yeah. I have to go with illegal. It's the illegal ones. Oh, there's a lot more uses of illegal than I expected. All right. Illegal attribute value when nested with, the allowed list with other value. Cannot be specified with attribute. So here, this is close, except I don't have a value. Illegal attribute value. See, I'm now into illegal attribute values. Illegal attribute without other attribute. Cannot be specified when attribute, or this is present. Yeah, see, that's not quite. Cat. Head let the cat out. Oh, name. Sean says name can be specified instead of source file from right. I assume that's from before. Yeah, right. That's the code we just stepped through a bit ago. So now I'm just trying to see if I can reuse an error message without creating it. I feel like it should be so close, but this is all cannot be specified with other attributes. Wait, without can only be specified with the following attribute present. Yeah. Oh, this is it. Hey, with other attributes. Illegal attribute without other attributes. Oh, here it is. This or this present. That's what I want, right? The description can only be specified with one of the following attributes. Oh, there it is. That's the one I want. All right, let's see if this reads correctly. So, description can only be here with the hash or the certificate public key. Now, I know certificate public key that this isn't perfect because it will lead them now to other error messages, potentially. If they have a source file, then they try to add the hashes, and it's going to tell them they can't. But at least then we're pointing them down a set of error messages in an imperfect world that gets them where we want them to end up, which is a decision of is it remote or not. And I suppose another way to approach this is just to rewrite the whole error message space in here around remote or not, and essentially start writing an entire story about all of this. Not prepared to do that yet. Okay, let's read this error message. The XC package description attribute can only be specified with one of the following attributes: hash or certificate public key present. That'll do it. So then you add certificate public key, or you add the hash. And then if you add a certificate public key, it will tell you need a certificate public key or a certificate thumbprint, which is fine, but at least you've started going down the right path as opposed to one where I was sent, which is telling me that I want a source file is present and was like, no, I don't want source file. All right, product name, fine. So this is the same as the other one. And then this is size. And then the last one is version. Okay. So then we take this message, flip, flip, and we write size, and we write version. And hopefully that makes the screen again. Okay. So if we look at our code real quick, can I bring these up? I can't bring these up next to each other. Anyway, the exe package payload, download, description, size, version. You'll get 3 error messages that these can only be specified with one of the hash, with one of the following attributes, hash or certificate public key. And you're like, okay. So I have to now add the hash or certificate or remove them, which is the other way to go. I think that puts people into a more likely path that will lead them to the right place in the end. All right, so let's see. That was that error message. Now I want to go back to NetFX and see if I can remind myself what it was about the build that it was only failing. I'm going to go back to the to-do. Back to our to-do. I didn't write a lot here. Why did a NetFX build fail after each architecture built? All right. So we're going to fail here. Can we can pass now. All right, let's look at this directory. So let's go into the wixlib directory and let's do a build here. I think, yes. Oh, and this is building the project dependencies. All right, fine. And then it built this. Okay. So here it's talking about x64. Let's see if I can make another failure in another file real quick. Open up the NetFX here. Open up, that's x64. Right. Okay, here we go. And then let's remove the certificate thumbprint and public key from here and build again. And let's see if I get both x86 and x64 at the same time. I don't. That was what I wanted to see. Why did it stop at x64 and not continue on to also the x86 file? Because I would have liked to have seen it tell me, hey, both of these files have issues. Here are all the errors you need to go and fix. And the error messages when I rebuild everything and get a new wix.exe available, these error messages will be the new ones. For now, we can deal with the old ones. Great. So why didn't we build? Why did we stop after x86? Let's go ahead and run and let's see if we can look at the bin log. We haven't looked at this in a long time, but let's go ahead and open it to see if this tells me what I'm looking for. All right, so we're gonna go jump down to the errors and we're gonna look at this Wix build. And this is probably gonna tell me, no, I was thinking, well, let's just look a little bit and then I'll tell you what I was thinking. So the parameters in are the Wix project, the tracking file, the all important tracking file we're talking about. And here's the extension directory. That's fine. Places where we will find our extensions. And yeah, I don't see, I was looking for something here thinking maybe we would see, oh, it's only building x86 right now. And we have util and ball both being pulled in from our build location or for our NuGet cache location, which is fine. Our defined constants are here. So there's our target path set, and what are these? Define constants. This doesn't have an equals inside in front of it. I'm curious. Oh, this is probably semicolons and it's splitting it for me very nicely. So I think this NetFX target path was actually let's code NetFX CA ARM64 semicolon x86 semicolon x64 semicolon. All right. Oh, can I make this bigger? Yes, I can. I should make it bigger. Make it a lot easier to read. There we go. It's huge for me now, but okay. So I don't see anything in here that's saying that I'm only going to build one architecture. In fact, here's all the bind paths being passed in. So it knows that we built all these architectures in one go. And there's all of our source files, and it did get both x86 and x64 in at the same time. So it should be able to build. All right, so there's a quick look into, hey, we're calling the Wix build target, which is the thing that does, that calls into wix.exe and does all that heavy lifting. And this is our command in the end, which we could have looked at before, but I thought it might be easier. Whew, that's a lot of text, but it's going to tell us everything we already saw. See, x86, x64, we're not building only x64 right now, yet we only got the errors for x64. Okay. And we were going to spit out that. All right, so I think now that means, oh, we need to take this. Let me bring this up, and I'm going to put it into a blank file here, or a thing. And I'm going to give this the full path to wix.exe. Let's see here. Where is wix.exe? ls, let's code, wix4, into our build, into wix, into, which one do I want? Do I want debug? Publish here. Wix, there we go. That's our wix.exe that was published from earlier in the build. I should be able to, wait, I don't need to do this. I'm gonna take this command. There. I was gonna put this here. Actually, we're gonna do it. We're gonna run this command line. Essentially the same thing, for all intents and purposes, what MS Build was running, but we're gonna run it by hand. That is a big file. Or a big command line, not big file, big command line. All right, let's run it and clear the screen. So it's gonna spit out lots, and let's see what it gives me. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it only gave 4 error messages. That's fine. That means we have reproduced it from the command line. So we should be able to take this command line now and jump over to Visual Studio. We haven't done this in a long time. I hope this works. All right, I'm not writing a test yet because I just want to step in and see what the behavior is and see what's going on a little bit. We're going to explore. So I'm going to go into debug. I'm going to pass that ginormous command line, and I'm going to use this starting directory here. All right, that. And I'm going to set Wix as the startup project. And if we step in, it's going to try to build it. I hope it just works. Oh, did I leave that? I left that defaulted source file. All right, we'll get that. I left out all that defaulted source file junk behind, but we'll delete that in a little bit. Okay. Hey, we're in Wix with all of our command handling and our run command. We're going to get the build command. We're going to run it. What do I want to see? I want to get to the compile phase, I think, because we're not getting that far. Aha. And, oh, no, that's all. All right, so we're going to pre-process it because that's what we always do. If we encounter an error, we're going to skip this file and go on to the next one. We're going to build up all the information needed to do a compile. We're going to get the compiler from the system, and then we're going to compile this step. And I should have looked at this source. What's the name of the source file? NetFX. So this is our first one, and this is going to spit out some errors. Not a problem. Intermediate compiler error. Boom. Run. Oh, still have this breakpoint. Thanks. Don't need that right now. We're going to get some errors. It's all good. It's all good. All good. All good. I'm just stepping up and out of each of these functions until I get back out to the compiler. And I get an intermediate. Nope, I do not get an intermediate because we have errors. That's fine. We encountered an error. That is true. So we continue. So we move on to the next source file. All right, this is good. And this source file now is the x86 one. Yes, good. Encountered error. Duh, it's right there. So the idea here is that if we encounter an error while processing this document, the pre-processing this document, we don't want to go and try to compile a document that failed to pre-process because it's going to have, who knows, all kinds of noise. Might not be valid XML because the preprocessor catches, I think, some of that. Anyway, all kinds of things could be wrong. So we don't want to process that. We don't want to compile that document, so we skip it. The problem is that we're using the global encountered error here. So as soon as we hit any error in the system, we will stop processing, which means that the previous thing failed, so we're never going to do more than pre-process. Duh. That's not helpful. So that's why at this point now, since we hit an error with the very first source file, we will do nothing more than pre-process the rest of the files. So we could get XML errors, but we won't get any actual compilation errors. And I would like us to get compilation errors out so you can fix all of them in one go. And here we go. Yeah, see, now we're just gonna miss everything. Okay. All right, so we can't use the global encountered error here for this to work. That's a bummer. Let's go look at preprocess. This returns a document. If there is a document. And if there's no document, that probably happens when we have an error. I'm just going to guess. The result gets set in process. And the result document gets set to the output of the state, right? And if we did not encounter an error, then we set the state. If we encounter an error, then this document will be null. So I think the change that is needed is this will come back null. Preprocess. So here, instead of saying, hey, if you hit any error, we will instead say if document is null, then skip it. So if we hit a problem while preprocessing, just preprocessing, then skip it. Otherwise, let's go ahead and continue. And you notice preprocessor doesn't have any checks against the error handling out here either. So it's designed to like, hey, here's your new document, go ahead and write it. Okay, I like the idea of that. Let's go ahead and run it again. We know we're getting to compile phase, set my breakpoint, F5. Oh, I need to go get rid of the defaulted source file. All right. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Here we are with our source files. Our first source file is the x64 net core. This comes back. It has a document. It's fine. We spit this out. Here's the console with a whole bunch of errors. Go scoot along. We've encountered an error. That's fine. We will continue. This again. The document is not, oh, the document is null. That surprises me. Why is this document null? Oh. That's x64. Whoa. Whoa, dude. Oh, can't do this live. Is it not it's the same problem, Rob. Oh, jeez. You just moved it. Dumb. Preprocessor. Down into here. Again, we're using the global state. So I'm just sitting here thinking, we use the global state a lot for messaging as a really quick and dirty way of just saying, there are errors, let's not keep going. An error was encountered, just stop going, instead of looking at each individual return value for things. So I may be pushing something that I want to work better that we've just not designed in yet, and I'm going to keep hitting this everywhere. So I'll hit it in the compiler too, because if we jump into some part of the compiler, let's just jump in the top of it and let's look at encountered error in here. Yeah, so here we don't even do this, but these are a little bit, so this is saying, hey, add this abstract. This is a helper method though, is if we did not encounter an error, then we create the symbols. But it would not get this error message, for example. But maybe that's already caught somewhere else. Yeah, so F4, search. But we would have run all of these things up here at least. And we would have run all of these error messages up here. So The compiler's a little better because it wraps this encountered error around the end of all of the processing. So here's where it processes the attributes for whatever element this is. This is the binary element. And then it does all the checking of the attributes, and then it would run any extent or any child elements if it wanted to. And this, then it only prevents the creation of the symbol, which of course would create an invalid symbol anyway and have to be really resilient to all the bad data. So it doesn't. It just says, hey, don't create the final symbol, but at least it printed all the error messages out. So the compiler actually is fairly decent at printing out errors even when a global error, one error is encountered, it still tries to process a lot of the space. The preprocessor, on the other hand, says, nope, you are not going to get this document if I have ever encountered an error. Which means that that null check was irrelevant, because clearly this is the exact same check here. All right, so knowing that, can we do better? All right, so I'm gonna go back to the compiler and close some of these. Don't need that. I do need this. I don't need that. I don't need that. I do need this. All right. What do we happens here? So we get a result only if we return. So if an exception is thrown, then we get around all this. Okay, that's interesting to notice. Preprocessor reader here. No, preprocessor, yeah. So let's see, if this fails, let's go dig down. So here's when the preprocessor starts. And if we look at the state, yeah, the state doesn't store any errors on it. So if we come along, all right, so these all throw. That's interesting. Does this have any write? iMessaging. Okay, it has messaging. Let's see all the usages of this dot messaging. There's the one that we were looking at before. Here's one where it writes if we have an invalid include. Okay, so if we have an invalid include, invalid document element. What is this? The next stack. This is when we're processing down. Okay. What I'm looking at now is how many errors can we get away with in preprocessors? So there's the warning. And that's the extension. That's fine. Okay, so it's just those. So, all right, let's just, I don't know if this is a good idea. I'm not certain. In fact, this might definitely not be a good idea. But let's go ahead. I really want to set on the state if it was this thing that failed, but because we're only using the global one, this might be a really bad idea. Let's see how bad this goes for me. Running tests. So what's going to happen here? It means I may return an output even though I hit an error. So anything that was expecting the preprocessor to not return a valid result when there was an error while processing is no longer getting that. They will have to look at the messaging. I'm not sure this is a good idea, but I'm going to see if this even solves my immediate problem or the one that I want to do, and maybe it won't matter at all. Let's see, here we go. All right, first source file. And have we hit a messaging error? Oh, this test is not going to do it. That's fine. Let's just see what happens. And we have a document now. Yep. Not null. So we go through. We get our 4 errors. Description, product name, size, version. It's all great. Come back around. We hit this again. We have an output document. Yep. The included files. We get the result, come back around. We have a document, it's not null. And now we get more errors in the x86 space. This is what I was trying to get. Okay. Now I'm pretty sure the compiler, we look at it. Let's see, compile, add extension down here. Look at the root namespace, resolve up. Yeah, right here. If any error was encountered, we return null. We do not return the intermediate that has been generated by this compilation, because we don't store the errors inside the intermediate. We just use this messaging as the proxy for it, and then we return the whole thing as a null. Yeah. Because it would be nice, this didn't happen in Wix 4, but it would be nice if the target, if we could return the target with errors and have all the errors in there easily attainable, so you could say, hey, these errors came from this target, then you could do a lot of processing. But after the compile step, you would know inside the intermediate, hey, this intermediate was generated, you can have it, but by the way, there's a lot of errors in it, and somehow store all those errors and things like that. None of that happened in Wix 4. We are purely dependent upon the encountered error, and it's just this big global switch. And I think doing more than that requires updating a lot of the preprocessor. In this, just the preprocessor, for example, we have to go in the preprocessor and keep track of all the errors. Now, a number of them throw, which is also a mixed metaphor. Sometimes we throw, sometimes we return data. There's a lot of we try not to throw in a lot of cases, because you can only throw one error and then you've lost your whole, recursive descent parser or preprocessor state. You're gone and everything's gone. So you get one error at a time, and that's not great. The purpose of messaging was to be able to collect a lot of messages and spit them all out. The problem is that then we overloaded that with the encountered error, and we only are able to get one pass through anything that then aborts after the preprocessing errors, or after encountering an error, including the preprocessor. And I think all of this is good stuff to do, but I don't know that I want to take that on right now. I'm not sure all of the implications have to go through. There's also a lot of change then also that, hey, we will now, out of the preprocessor, return a document in your result that is not valid, or did not preprocess correctly. So now that behavior is different, and we haven't done that at all. And the state doesn't have anywhere to store that. Yeah. It would be a matter of bringing the state and having an error state on this processing state, which is this internal piece of the state machine of the preprocessor. That would say, hey, did you encounter an error on this run of the preprocessor? That's essentially what we need, is the error for this run. And then we would have to have extensions be able to play along with it. Yeah, all right. I think I've talked myself out of this. I'm just going to have to live with the less desirable behavior of, man, I really don't want really want it to keep going. Because what is this saying? This means if you have many documents, only the first one is returning errors, and then you have to fix those errors on one file and then compile again. Gosh, that's not ideal. Not ideal. Not ideal. So how would we do this? So we can't check the encountered error state up front. I mean, we could check the encountered error state, but that doesn't tell us if we hit one while we're processing here. The preprocessor does throw for some things, but as we saw, it does some messaging right. Dot right is the one, dot right, dot right. And then the extensions can do the same thing, where they could, you could have an extension that runs, and then its intent is to just do a write, and that would say, hey, I hit an error. I just write an error message and everything is supposed to stop. So if I change it, I have to come up with a different way for extensions to report that the error was for just this run. Makes me sad. Yep. So you get errors for one file at a time for my build command. I wonder how this was different in Wix 3. I don't know how much I want to go dig into it right now, but I wonder if it was different in Wix 3. So you can get errors. Let's see here. So this is the write. That's a write. That's an error message. That's a warning message. Don't have to worry about that one. Sorry, I'm still trying to make this work in my head. All right, so let's just try. Just see if it yeah, I know it doesn't exist. Go ahead and create it. Thanks. Internal set. Yeah, that's probably right. Processing state, private class. Oh, okay, fine. Then it doesn't really matter. Do we have any setters on this? We don't. Okay, fine. All right, so that's that one. And then the other right is this one. And we have the state still. No. Spacing is off here. Okay. So that's those two. And then if we go back to how many catches do we have? 1, 2, but that throws again. So you won't get, yeah, so that throws, that's fine. Throws again. All of these throw. And that's fine. All right, all these are throwing. Great. Okay. So now what if we said if not state.encountered error? All right, so most of the cases get thrown either out, all the way out, or here, and then we get this result. Oh man, I'm still debugging. So this catches the two places where we write error messages into the global messaging, which will set the global encountered error. And then we set this private state. Now we do not return a document if this private one hit an issue. Now we're not hitting this case in our test right now. I don't know. Still not sure this is safe. Yes, we're gonna get this document. Everything's fine here. Yep, and now we have a result. And then we have a document. So this will work. This has a high chance of working, except it will not work for extensions that want to participate in writing an error message, because they will not update the private state. They'll just go into the global messaging thing, which has a separate error, and it won't update this. So that means we would return a document when we shouldn't, or we return state when we shouldn't. Should have been null. Instead, okay. Now on the flip side, this gives me multiple error documents. Yeah, and that preprocessor core had a separate encountered error from the messaging encountered error, so it was able to throw them away each time. And our issue now in v4 is that we don't throw messaging away in between all of these cases. It's just global and keeps running. Wait, I say that. No, it must, because we just saw that. So that's an interesting thought. Service, core service provider, core service, toolset service provider. Messaging is a singleton. What if messaging wasn't a singleton? No, that's not going to work. No, that's not going to work. Because there are definitely places expect this encountered error to be held together or to be persisted for long periods of time. And if every time you get a messaging object, you got a new one, that would confuse the world. So the problem is that in v3, we had these per core things, and they got promoted up to the messaging. Yeah, in v4, yeah, in v4 we provided messaging so that anybody could get it at any time and not have to go through these proxy objects that we provided, which were called core objects. You can still see it. I talk about the compiler core object. This compiler core is this leftover goo that essentially now holds a bunch of messaging things. Or, sorry, internal pieces. And it's this mishmash of two worlds that we haven't resolved the whole thing yet. But the idea was that this would store, you could create a core per compile. So when you create a file, you create a core that would have a whole bunch of state in it. And then it would have its own encountered error for that run. You throw that core away, the next file you get a new core, and so on and so forth. And somewhere that encountered error would get promoted to the global one correctly when all the cores were being passed around. But then the purpose was to make messaging global, and that pulled the encountered error up. So now it's easier. Anything can get a message object, which is nice. You're not dependent on getting the right core and having all that. That is much easier. The problem is that we also promoted a global encountered error issue. So where I'm left with in the preprocessor is if you have a preprocessor extension that writes a message, you'll bypass the state and then when you bypass the state, the encountered error will not be set. And you will say, hey, there's an error, yet a document will still get provided. And I wonder if it's better to errata that, to document that behavior, that strange behavior, as a thing that if you write a preprocess extension, you have to deal with it. Because what's the worst case then? You have a document that technically an extension says doesn't parse or has an error in it for some reason, and yet we let it continue into the compilation. So that's the downside. But if you write your preprocessor and you post-process the world, you could get the result. You could post-process. So we could force extensions to preprocessor extensions to recognize that they had an error and to change the result to null these guys out if they hit an error. So essentially we're pushing the problem created onto the extensions to deal with them. Which isn't very friendly, but we also I don't know that we have any preprocessor extensions out there. So I'm debating the benefit of the users that will definitely benefit from being able to get multiple compile errors. Because we no longer have a global block on preprocessing. And basically apologize to all the extension writer, preprocessor extension writers, and say, hey, sorry, you have to do this if you encounter an error. All 0 of them right now. 1, 2 of them. That might be a thing. That might be the thing to do. Now, technically speaking, you should do the same for the compiler, but I care less about the compiler because it's only skipping these things. And if we don't compile after the compile phase, we're going to bail anyway. I mean, we'll try to load the localization files just as a, hey, by the way, here's your localization files that don't load, errors. You can get those in the mix as well. I think this might have an encountered error at the top of it. Let me go check. Yeah. Well, no, it will do the same thing. This needs to do the same thing then. Okay. Yeah. So we could load the localization files, and this would be the same. And skip it, but at least you would have got your preprocessor errors for this log files. And then we would stop the compilation. All right, I want to bring up my diff now and see if I can look at the world a little bit, clean up things that I know I don't want. I know I'm not going to take these changes. We're taking this change, but I don't think we need 2 spaces after the last function. CSproj, this is unnecessary things that Visual Studio does because we automatically pick up all the files. Anyway, yes, we're going to want this file. This is our debugging with our ginormic command line. We will not want that. Actually, we want to start plugging some of these in that we know we want. What changed here? I don't see any changes. XE package fixture, yes, we want that. Okay. Compiler payload. I don't want either of these changes. All right, cool. This can go, and now I don't have any changes. No, I do have changes. Duh, the error messages that we fixed. Made better without other attributes. All right. So I want those changes. It's kind of weird looking at VS Code. I'm not used to looking at it in the VS Code way. I wonder if, yeah, okay. And then the build command is what I'm kind of staring at. What's going on? Yes, I did. Yeah, this is there's an interaction between you have to save these files before you commit them over here, and I don't have that feel down. I have to look at what stage changes are when I get done because I don't trust what it's doing. Okay, we'll come back to that thing. This build command is the other part of it where it said, okay, if preprocessor returns a null document, this change is pretty much safe either way. It comes back both ways. This alone won't fix the problem, as we saw, because preprocessor, unless we take the change in preprocessor, also returning null as soon as there's a global error handling. So yeah, I don't know if I want to put these together. I don't. All right. So then this leaves me here. XE package fixture. Okay. Yes, delete that blank line. I see it didn't save when I did it before. All right, whatever. That, and we're definitely not checking in these changes, right? Yeah, because I deleted the certificate public key. Okay, which leads me to the thing I'm avoiding. Setting this encountered error in the processing state. Man, it really does improve the experience, or at the cost of having to explain to extension writers how this is a little different. How it's unfortunately a little different. That if they want to write an error, so the specific case is if you're an extension writer writing a preprocessor extension and you want to write an error and you expect that single write error to not return a valid document, then you have to, in your post-process command, you have to null out the document that you get. Said, okay, I said there is an error, don't pass this along. Yeah, I don't think we count them in encountered errors. I'm not trying to do this here. Come back. It's just a bool right now. If we changed, I guess we could introduce a number in errors encountered. Need a better. All right, what would that look like? That would look like, I probably can't edit this. No, because this is the external iMessaging. But it would say encountered errors and then count them when we hit them. It's only a get, so it's all internal. Let's look at messaging. Why am I looking at the interface? Let's look at messaging.cs. There we go. The most important part. So we could have int errors encountered, error count. I don't know, it doesn't matter. And then this would change to this dot error count greater than 0. Okay, now you can't set it. Can we please blow up? Thank you. And if that, then this would change to error count and we could change the messaging interface to enhance the error count, to add the error count, so that we would, in the preprocessor, I think it's all within inside here, we would say I don't have it because that's the interface, but we'll pretend it's there. If the before error count is less than the messaging error count, then we know that we encountered one here. That's all internal, right? We don't have to tell anybody else how we're counting the errors. The only place that that gets set is right here, I'm pretty sure. Well, must have, because I just, no, mess this up. Oh, no, you're going to play with the error count. Yeah, okay. We changed the interface, but it's additive, so most things won't care. If the listener is that, otherwise throw an exception, right? Let's see, so if we bring up, nope, not message listener, I want messaging. They're right next to each other though. I thought, services, messaging. It's not much different than last error number. You shouldn't. I'm thinking through the error count because we didn't. It's just possible to get it wrong, or it's a count. It's harder than getting the Boolean right, but it should be fine. Countered during processing. I don't know why do we need a value in these things? Feels unnecessary, but yes. Okay. So that's what that would look like. This would then build. And we can get rid of packaging state. Encountered error. This may hold together. Let's see. Let's see. Am I still debugging? No, that's the right build. So let's go over into the correct layer. Where are we at? Okay. API into Wix. Extensibility. All right. Gotta close Visual Studio so it can relink all these Gnocchi packages. Let's see. What am I doing here? I want to go to people users. I'm going to clean out my Wix toolset. Packages so they can be pulled in later. Oh, we don't have a batch file. Oh yeah, we do. Down lower. Right. Let's just go into Wix and then Wix toolset extensibility. Do a surgical build, I think. Should work. All right. And if everything worked, Visual Studio will pick up the new one. Let's see if I got it right. This might work. This might work. That gets the error count. That's messaging. Come on. Let's go Visual Studio restore. There we go. And we go to the preprocessor where we were using the error count. Did it not pick up the new one? Oh, come on. Need to rebuild. I tried to do it sneaky and it didn't work. I'm working on improving that layering build process so I don't have to do all these funky hacks. Oh wait, I just built it. That didn't push the artifacts, I bet. I bet that didn't push the artifacts. So I didn't get the right one. Let's see. All right, let's see. Does this do it? Let go back to preprocessor. Yeah, that's what I said. I didn't do the whole artifacts push part. Let's see. But it should pull it off. All right. We'll just build API again. Let's see where we end up if we build API again. Doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. guess it's not a problem if we expose error count through messaging. We didn't do it before, so I'm trying to think through, is there any issue if we do? Are people going to start expecting something that we don't want them to expect? It's like, I don't really want to add things out here willy-nilly. But it might be enough. I don't think there's anything downsides to it anyway. All right, gotta wait for Visual Studio to catch up, do the restore. Yes, extensibility is not in the namespace because you have to restore from my newly built one, I hope. Yep, there we go. Now it's got error count. Now it's finding it. And now end crunch is crunching away. Whoa. All right, well, broke something. Let's see. What did we break here? Ah, yes, all right. So now we gotta go and tell everybody about the new, yeah, so this is for testing purposes. That's fine. Error count, private set, encountered error. We can do the same way. Error count. Yes, that, thank you. Yeah, fine, whatever. And then if this is an error, this dot error count. Go that way. So that'll build. Ooh, something funky is going on. Could not find an entry section. Oh, right. I must have got my logic wrong and the preprocessor just flat out not correct. If the before error count is that, if the before error count is, oh, less than or equal to, probably. The error count hasn't changed, then go ahead and have your document. Actually, if it's equal. It can't be less than, because we have nothing that ever makes it go down. That's kind of strange. I wonder if I should just say equals. Yeah, it's always the weird thing about error counts, and you start going like, well, it should only go up. So if I do equals, but what if it goes down? Well, that's really strange. Should I give that to them? I don't know. Maybe it should just be equals. If the error count is the same, then it's all good. If somehow it goes down, which I don't know how it would, then you would not get this. I think that's probably the way I want to go, because that's more likely to catch some of the errors. Like, how did you make it go down? No result for you. That is too strange. Don't do that. All right. Mock messaging, I don't care. Unnecessary assignment to value name. Let's see. Do I care? Unnecessary assignment token. These are getting assigned later, so I have to say you're a string. Do I care about these? Ooh, expression value. I don't know if I care about those. I'll have to think about that. And then that's mock messaging. All right, you know, we'll just toss all these in, please. Just go once. This document, please. Go. Yes, I know what you're gonna do. Yep, you got it. All right. Put these in a separate commit, probably. That's cute. That's cute. Oh, it's this one that's actually complaining about, not that one. There we go. Okay, that's better. So this would add a new piece to messaging, a new error count that we've not had before. I don't know if that's a good or I don't know if that's a problem. Should be fine. Stop and think about it for a bit, but this is fine. All right, let's go back and run it again. I think all my breakpoints are in place. run. What did I do wrong? The extension, oh, util could not be found? Oh, because we have to do a restore. And we've not done a restore yet. That's fine. Let's go ahead. Go back to NetFX and just do an MS build here real quick, and that will restore the extensions that I need for this to run. That's fine, I don't care about that. Let's see if I can get this to run again. Oh, or no, it didn't get far enough, did it? Ah! This is what I get for trying to almost surgically update my build, but not quite. Ugh! Close. Very close. All right, I keep trying to do this in Visual Studio Code because I know it's bigger, but let's see here. What are all the changes we have? So that's the messaging error count. That adds the error count and updates everything. Run the netfx command. Try running the netfx command. Dot. I didn't think maybe it's gonna, oh, it restore. What did it restore? Oh, WCA util, restore WCA util, and then hit that. Ah, very good. You're right, good idea. That will work. All right, now if we run, it should have restored all the parts it needed. I think, yeah. I can see it in my pad. All right, we're at compile phase again. Okay. All right, preprocessor context. Preproce, here we are. Before error count, presumably a 0. I want to set the breakpoint here. Run, after the error count, it's still 0. And we are done preprocessing. This is fine. Document is not null. So we're able to go and compile. That hits a failure. Let's go into the preprocessor. Our error count is something higher than 0, higher than 1 even. Yep. Error count. Preprocess this, and our error count afterwards is still 4. So we still get our document. And we're able to get through all of our documents, and we can see I have the 8 errors here. Okay. This count gets the count. Anyway, gets the count of errors. Just repeating the value. All right. Take the thus far part out of the value. I don't, it doesn't matter much. All right, so there's that. I don't want these changes. The mock is adding some white space changes plus the thing I want to separate those pieces out. The preprocessor is this before, error, after count, and then some code cleanup based off of what the warnings from the error messages. And then messaging is all about just counting the number of errors. Okay, let's get, that's correct. You come out of there. This is correct. This is correct. All right. So here we're running the to-dos back to the to-dos. This one is first. Why did the XC package complain about descriptions and other things? We've improved those error messages to talk in terms of the hash, the certificate, instead of talking in terms of the source file, because the source file can be defaulted from the name. And that's all that this is about, plus a little bit of a unit test to track those down and keep them running. All right, that's cool. The second thing then is why did a NetFX build fail after each architecture build? That came down to the build command failing after the global messaging encountered an error. And so the change here then is to say, look, if we don't have a document, clearly we can't compile it. So skip that, don't go off the global. error messaging, but then the preprocessor still was using the global messaging. So the trick there is, hey, let's use error count. And if we expose error count out of messaging, then we can say, hey, before and after, and do the right thing. Now, at the same time, I can go into the compiler and tell it the same. Hey, here's your intermediate. We didn't encounter errors, and I will go look at doing that. If we do that, then we will return an output object as long as there are no errors encountered between line 144 and 155 executing, which should be this preprocessing. That should work. The messaging change is the thing to look at, because this is the behind the scenes of the interface being updated. And it really is just the encountered errors if the error count is greater than 0. And then the error count is incremented when we used to just set the encountered error true. And as long as we don't hit greater than max int errors, we won't rotate back to 0. I'm not worried about that problem. If someone does that, they have bigger problems. Yeah. I'm gonna go take a look at dropping this in the compiler and sit and stare at the error count, make sure that there's nothing else. Because changing messaging, because messaging is just used so widely, I want to make sure and think about it should be fine. What would people do with it that it isn't of value? It tells you the count of errors. Maybe it's even useful. If you could print at the end of the Wix run, it could print the number of errors it hit. In fact, all right, we're out of time. I won't be back next week. I'm on vacation next week, which I also realize means that I'm going to miss the next Wix meeting. So maybe the next Wix meeting gets bumped, but I'll go talk about it on the Wix users mailing list or devs, I don't know, one of the mailing lists, and see if we're going to move that. And so I'll be back in 2 weeks, which, man, it'll be August then. Oh, I can't believe it's August already. So that'll be August 10th right now. I think that's when we'll do this again. And we'll probably have a lot of this kind of sorted out. And, maybe I'll just tell you how it turned out. I think it'll all work out. Anyway, until then, you guys keep coding. You know I am. Bye.